Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be back here on this podcast. My name is David Pietrangelo, your host and nerd extraordinaire for Remember 64, the Nintendo 64 podcast, where we are going through every single game of the library. The way I tend to describe it is we're going to be playing everything good, bad, ugly, and everything in between. And while I do love me quite a bit of N64 and retro gaming, I will say that I am a huge fan of indie games. Now, what I'm talking about today is called Cobalt Core. It is a indie game, deck builder, roguelike, space-inspired, sci-fi, flashy. It's a whole bunch of different genres mixed into one called Cobalt Core. It came out in the latter half of 2023. I didn't know it was coming, and it ended up on my top 5 games of the year, sitting right in that spot, bumping out some really fantastic games. Obviously, 2023 was a heck of a year for video games, as many of us probably know. But Cobalt Core did something that I didn't expect, and something that really got me to keep playing my Switch over and over and over again. Instead of logging into the expansion pack and playing a bunch of N64 games or Super Nintendo titles, I kept booting up this game. Now, I use the descriptor of charm quite a bit when it comes to reviewing and talking about games, especially in the indie titles. It's hard not to. There's so many great games from indies that are just filled with so much charm. For me, injecting some real fun and witty personality into a title really can go a long way, and Cobalt Core does just that. And like I mentioned, it's also a roguelike deck builder, 2 genres that I absolutely love. This is made by Rocket Rat Games, and its key inspiration is some other pretty great sci-fi titles that also have roguelike elements in them. Primarily FTL, Faster Than Light, and Into the Breach. Those are 2 games that, just like this, are still on my Switch, and I played quite a bit on and off for years. They're just fantastic titles, and this shares that love, at least for me so far in the last several months. Now, there are dozens and dozens of roguelike or roguelite games out on the market pretty much every month, I would say. Whether they're big titles or small, they're out there constantly. So every time I pick up a new one or hear of a new one or read about it, see videos, trailers, whatever it might be, I'm always curious as to why these title characters or individuals or teams are stuck in this so-called time loop. Why do they keep repeating? Why does that happen in Hades? Things like that. I'm always curious as to what that might be. And Cobalt Core literally just has your characters in a time loop. That's really what it is. They're in a interdimensional time loop, and they're trying to figure out how they got there and why. What's interesting is this is also the way that the story is fleshed out, similar to a game like I mentioned, like Hades, where you'll get story beats as you go, whether it's a successful or unsuccessful run of going through the game. You'll get some small snippets of personality and story beats, and to me, that's some of my favorite stuff. But essentially, what you're doing is you're using cards and ships and turn-based combat that is on a 2D plane. Your ship is at the bottom. You might have some mines that you're shooting out there. You're going to have rockets. You're going to have lasers. You're going to have shields. You're going to build up your attacks. You're going to build up your shield so you don't get hit as much in your next turn. And you're firing at the ship that is above you. You will have a deck of cards in front of you, similar to any other sort of deck builder out there, and a sort of, mana pool that you can use per turn, which can be expanded or can be, taken down a notch depending on any effects that are either brought on by cards that you have or cards that your enemy has as well. And then there's a whole lot of passive items that you can pick up as well that will give you different abilities and different advantages as you go forward throughout your run. All of this sounds familiar, but it just does it with a lot of personality. And I really think that goes a long way in making this game something special, and why I have a hard time putting it down. There's a lot of variety in this game as well. There are over 200 cards, 6 different ships, 6 crew members, at least so far. and with a whole ton of variability. Even heading into a new loop with the same ship and crew, none of the attempts of success have felt the same to me. I have played this game dozens and dozens of times at this point, and I never felt like I was playing the same loop, and I was never bored. The complete run that I've done, at least a handful of them, are anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long I'm taking to sort of question some of my choices, or if I'm going on different paths. Sometimes you take an extra couple stops along the way so I can pick up extra cards, or help individuals out so I can get a little bit of an extra boost for a longer run. But that's pretty much the longest run I may have had is just over an hour. It's a lot of fun. Each one of these battles that you run into on a grid system where you choose left, right, middle, and sort of choose your path on your run consists of randomly generated enemies. They have different ships, abilities, capabilities. So again, it's not even just who you take with you and what cards you have. It's also who you face. All of that stuff changes. I take my time with some of these. I love how games sometimes will really make me stop and think. What's great about this too is that there's no timer on your turn. You can literally sit there for 10 minutes if you wanted to before you even play one card. And then along the way, you get to hear a lot of really cool music. If you really like the vibe of games like FTL, like I mentioned earlier, and that kind of like those sound effects and that music, this is spot on like that. It is excellent. It's really chill. My wife was in the room with me not too long ago, actually, when I played one of the runs, and I didn't have my headphones on my Switch, and she just said, "Ooh, that's some really chill music you got going there. That sounds like a nice soundtrack." And someone who doesn't even know what I'm looking at or what game I'm playing, she kind of just heard that in the background and really liked it. So I thought that's kind of nice and special. It's kind of a cool thing, and one of those soundtracks similar to, let's say, FTL, like I mentioned, or Oxenfree. I love those soundtracks, where I can just kind of have them on in the background and get some work done at the same time if I'm not playing games. It's great. Now, finally, I want to mention this personality and the charm that I brought up at the beginning of talking about this game. Cobalt Core has that in every single interaction. Whether you're heading out with characters that are named Dizzy, Isaac, Drake, there's also a cat.exe. He's sort of like your onboard computer, but it literally just looks like a cat. The dialogue is awesome. I had an amazing time seeing and reading each and every one of them banter off each other. They're talking about weapons, other characters, their powers, their abilities, their spare parts. And then you run into characters that are, called Grandma, for example. She has this like big ship that has a giant gun on the bottom. And, I have written down a couple of times where the characters will be like, "Hey, I'm looking for something new." And she goes, "Well, I can offer you weapons." The next character goes, "What about cookies?" And then the next character says, "Maybe both." And that's it. That's the interaction. Those funny little things like that. They're quick, they're snappy, they're fun. I don't know. Those kind of things just like tickle my funny bone, if that's the right way to say it. I really like the way that the game presents the story as well, because at the end of a successful run, what you do is you get to choose which characters, ones that you have unlocked so far, which part of their background of how they got to this time loop and stuck in it you want to see. There's 3 for each, and there are 6 different characters, like I said, at least so far. So it's quite a bit to unlock. You can only choose from them if you have them in your party of 3 as you have a successful run. But then along the way, they bounce off each other and sort of chirp each other sometimes, and they'll become friends a little bit here and there, and they'll have just moments in between battles and in between pickups that are kind of unexpected, but a lot of fun. Ultimately, honestly, I'm rambling quite a bit with this game, but Rocket Rat Games has made an awesome roguelike deck builder that is not going to be coming off my Nintendo Switch. Is also on PC. I highly, highly recommend it. It's just full of great style, music, and writing, with gameplay that just has a great, satisfying loop and never feels boring. Cobalt Core, one of my favorite games of 2023, and I continue to play it as we head into 2024. But regardless of what you are playing in 2024, whether it is from the year prior or anything new, as always, happy gaming.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.